Okay, so this is actually pretty insane. While my husband was deployed, I had an emotional affair with one of my coworkers. I don't know what came over me, but I was just like, fuck it. I've been wanting him for months now. I wanted to feel wanted and I wanted to feel desired because my husband wasn't there, and no one else ever made me feel that way. My coworker, well, he definitely did. And after a few weeks of flirting back and forth, we finally gave in to our desires and slept together. I felt so guilty afterward. I didn't want to admit what I had done, not only to myself, but to my husband as well. After all, he was my first love. We were high school sweethearts and I still loved him, even though we had our issues before he left for deployment. So I decided to keep everything to myself and hoped that I wouldn't have to see my coworker again anytime soon. But unfortunately, my stupid boss decided to send me to his office to deliver some documents the day after I slept with him. And I couldn't help but notice the lingering scent of arousal on him. Even though he tried to play it cool, I could tell that he was just as affected by our tryst as I was. It was awkward and painful, but I got through it. And since then, he'd always try to subtly rub his crotch against me whenever he walked past me in the hall. It was annoying and exciting at the same time. I hated it, but I also kind of loved it. This went on for a while until my husband came home from deployment. I was so relieved when he came back, and even though I hadn't been faithful to him, I still felt his love and affection wash over me like a warm blanket. I knew that I should have confessed everything to him, but I didn't. I was too scared to lose him, and I didn't think that I deserved his forgiveness. But every time I looked into his eyes, I saw a shadow of mistrust there. I could sense that he was holding back, and that he was untruly the man that I married. He was distant and cold sometimes, and I hated it. But then something happened that made him leave me for good. One day I heard him arguing with my father over the phone. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could sense the tension in their voices. Later that evening, my husband told me that his grandmother had passed away, and that he needed to go visit his family. I understood, even though I wished that he'd stay with me. I knew that his family needed him now more than ever. So I let him go. I didn't hear from him for a week, which was unusual because he usually called me every day, no matter where he was, so I called him myself. But when I did, his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again the next day, but the same thing happened. I started to get worried. I tried calling his cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail as well. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid that something bad had happened to him, but at the same time I was angry that he'd left me without any explanation. So I did the stupidest thing that I could have ever done. I called his grandmother to see if she knew what had happened to him. When the nice old lady answered the phone, I asked her if she knew where my husband was. She sounded confused and asked me why I was calling her house. That's when I realized that something was wrong. Very wrong. His grandmother told me that he was there with her every day and that he'd been by her side when she died. He hadn't gone to see his own family at all. So why had he lied to me? Was he cheating on me? Had he never loved me? A million thoughts ran through my mind as I listened to his grandmother tell me about how much he'd missed her and how he'd been taking care of her in her final days. Then she mentioned that he often talked about me, saying that I was the best thing that had ever happened to him, and that he couldn't wait to see me again. I felt tears prickling in my eyes as I realized that I'd misjudged him. He hadn't been cheating on me. He'd been spending his last days with his beloved grandmother, and he'd missed me so much that he'd confided in her about me. I could hear the love in his grandmother's voice as she spoke about me to him, telling him how happy she was that he'd found someone like me. It was obvious that she approved of me, and she wanted him to come home to me. When he finally arrived home, I cried and apologized to him for everything that I'd done. I told him about my affair and how sorry I was. But to my surprise, he didn't get angry or upset. Instead, he hugged me and told me that he understood. He said that he'd never stopped loving me and that he forgave me. I couldn't believe it. I thought that he'd be furious with me, but he wasn't. He told me that he'd been struggling with his feelings for me too, and that he needed time to process everything. I understood. I'd hurt him deeply, and I knew that I couldn't expect him to forget about it. but I also knew that he still loved me. Now, I don't want to brag, but I am a very beautiful woman. I know it, you know it, and even my husband knows it. I'm not the type of woman that gets jealous easily. If you're thinking that I'm going to start a fight, well, then you clearly don't know me very well. I don't start fights, but I will finish them. And trust me, you don't want to mess with me. So please don't even try. One day I went to my closet and took out a bag full of clothes that I'd been saving. It was for him. Yes, the bag was full of sexy lingerie that I'd bought for him. I wanted to spice up our sex life, and I thought that he'd like to try something new. But when I reached into the bag, I found something strange. There was a small box inside, wrapped in black satin. I had no idea what it was. I tried to remember if I'd bought it, or if maybe it was a gift from someone else, but I couldn't remember anything. So I put it on my dressing table and went to get dressed. A little while later, my husband came into the room and saw the box. He asked me what it was and who had sent it. I had no idea. All I knew was that I hadn't put it there. But when my husband picked up the box, I saw a flash of recognition cross his face. He looked away quickly, but I'd seen it. Who was this box for? Was it for me or for someone else? I didn't know, but I wanted to find out. So I followed him into the bathroom and peeked over his shoulder. He was taking off his shirt, and the sight that greeted me made my heart skip a beat. There was a tattoo on his chest, a beautiful butterfly that looked like it was alive, but that wasn't what caught my eye. What did catch my eye was the name that was written underneath the tattoo. It read, Isabella. Who was Isabella? Was she the reason why my husband had been acting so strangely lately? As I stood there staring at him, he turned around and caught me looking. He looked shocked and confused, like he didn't know what to say. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Finally, he broke the silence. "Who are you?" he whispered, his eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing here?" I stared back at him, trying to make sense of what he was saying, but his words didn't make any sense to me. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Who are you?" he repeated, his voice shaking slightly. "I don't know," I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. "I don't know who you are or how you got here." I felt dizzy and confused. I stumbled back, hitting my head on the sink. Everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor. My head throbbed, and I could hear sirens wailing in the distance. Then I remembered what had happened. I'd hit my head on the sink and passed out. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst part was that I didn't recognize the man that was kneeling beside me, asking if I was okay. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with worry. But I couldn't place him. Who was he? Why did he care about me? Was he my husband? I looked at him for a long time, trying to make sense of who he was, but I couldn't. Finally, he helped me up and led me out of the bathroom. But before we could take a step outside, I turned back to look at the bathroom. That's when I saw it. On the mirror, written in lipstick, were the words, "He doesn't love you anymore."